In a little under a year, I've read 30 plus books. And some changed my life and others didn't. So for my sake and yours, I wanted to give you 20 lessons I've learned from these books. The first book I wanted to talk about was Epictetus's Discourses. The first lesson being misery loves company. Epictetus says in his book, "Why do others need to be beheaded just because you are being beheaded?" And I think that's a very important principle to live by, that if you are suffering, it's better not to look for other people suffering. Instead, you must change your situation. And that leads straight into the second lesson we learn in this book, and that being, it's the way you react that gives power to whatever situation you're in. On the back of the book, it even says, "I must die, but must I die crying?" Well, bawling, but I think this is really important because what happened to Epictetus is he was a slave to the Emperor Nero. Nero literally broke his leg, and the way Epictetus reacts, and he goes, "Look what you done. You happy now?" Like how baller is that? Like, come on, dude. So it's how you react to certain things will completely change the way you view things and the way you give power to things. And honestly, it will change how things happen to you and what will affect you. And if you're going after something, if something bad happens to you, it's not going to steer you off course. In the next book, we have Marcus Aurelius, and this is a very popular book. And we have two lessons we learn from this. The first one being, what's good for the hive is good for the bee, and what's good for the bee is good for the hive. Meaning whatever's good for you, whatever genuinely is good for you, it's good for other people, and what's good for other people is going to be good for you. But you have to understand what good is, so. And then the second thing that we learn is how Marcus Aurelius viewed life. He looked at life in a poet's eyes, meaning he saw how wheat bent over the weight of itself, and he saw the beauty in what life had to offer and show him. And that's also a very important lesson, and there's a future book we talk about in this video. And actually that's in this specific book. This is Ryan Holiday's book. Ryan talks about life through the poet's eyes, meaning can you find the beauty in the simple and the banal, meaning whatever you're looking at, like my shirt, on how each little thing has a ridge and each little piece of cotton spews out a little wick, and whatever it is, no matter what, it could be plastic, it could be nature, it could be the sky. Can you find the beauty in that, meaning that you're looking for the best parts in everything? The other thing he talks about is don't tell a story. He's not saying don't tell a story that's funny. He's saying don't make your life seem grandiose and big and make your story important. Instead, he talks about how people actively try to avoid giving biographies and telling stories because all it's going to do is raise your ego. And the last thing he talks about that I think is very important for you to hear is don't talk about what you're going to do before you do it. There's so many occurrences in my life, particularly when I'm talking about what I'm going to do, and then when I go to do it, I'm so burnt out and drained already. I'm like, why? Peter Lynch, you thought it was all going to be philosophy, but the next lesson we learn is invest in companies that you use and can get behind. He's basically saying, if you use water bottles, one specific water bottle that you love and you know other people love it, invest in that company because you can get behind it. And if you can get behind it, it's going to continue to grow. Great lesson. Letters from a Stoic, there it is. Next lesson is from Seneca, Letters from a Stoic. We have a quote in this one that says, "Any life seems short to people who measure it in terms of pleasure, which through their empty nature are incapable of completeness." I think that one speaks for itself, and we can talk about the next lesson that we learned from this book. It's pretty harsh, but he goes, "There's no state of slavery more disgraceful than one self-imposed." Meaning, let's talk about alcoholism. People who are a slave to alcoholism. There's nothing more disgraceful, as harsh as that sounds, as someone who has made themselves a slave. And it's sad, it's painful to see people go through that, even for yourself to go through that. And he talks about it's just not a good thing to be owned by something else through your own being, through your own doing. And lastly, we've talked a lot about philosophy books, and Seneca mentions, how do you know philosophy is working? How do you know that you're actually learning something? And he says, you know philosophy is working when you can become a better friend to yourself. And then we have Plato's Republic. I love this book. Look how much I've read. Amazing book. I think everybody in their lifetime should read this book. And the first lesson is the Cave Allegory, the most famous parable ever. And it's talking about how people are chained to a wall for their entire life, and there's a fire behind them that they can't see. They can't even move their head. They're forced to look straight ahead at a wall. And someone's putting shadows or figures in between the fire, so it shoots shadows at the wall. And that's what those prisoners see their entire life, these shadows. And they think that is what life is. They think whatever they're being shown is what life has to offer. And then one day, the prisoner realizes, I can move my body. Wait, I can move my head. I bet you his neck would hurt. And he starts looking around, and he's like, where am I? So he starts walking. He looks, there's a bright light coming out of this cave, and he's like, I'm gonna investigate. And so he walks up and out of the cave, and everything's so bright because he's never seen the sun, so he's avoiding looking at it, and he's so used to looking at shadows that every single shadow that he sees, he just stares at. He recognizes that as real life. It's the only thing. He's basically in an echo chamber, right? Because that's his entire life that he believes. And this is mind-blowing to him. He's like, where am I? And then eventually he starts getting better. He starts looking at the trees, and he starts looking at the things that aren't shadows. Starts looking at the river. And then he starts trying to look up at the sun. It's too bright. He's like, my eyes. And then finally he realizes that all of the shadows are coming from the light. So he goes back into the cave, and he's like, holy crap, I can't believe that I found the truth. I can't believe I found the light. And he goes and tells his other buddy that's still chained to the wall. He's like, come on, you have to get out of here. Come look at this. He unbinds his buddy, takes him out of the cave, and his buddy's like, what are you talking about? Like this is horrible. No, this isn't real. No, the real stuff is back there in the cave, right? So his buddy goes back to the cave, and his friend is like, what the hell was that? Like, how could he not understand that this is what's the truth? How can he not see that this is the truth? And so he goes back in one more time, tries to grab him, and his buddy's so mad. He's like, stop showing me this, I don't care, and kills the buddy who's showing him the truth, which is a direct parallel to, if you understand what that is insinuating. And I understand I talked a lot about that, but that is one of my favorite stories or parables ever in any literature. And the next lesson that we learn from the Republic is all virtue comes from wisdom, meaning all like goodness, all good characteristics comes from wisdom. Because without wisdom, you don't know why it's good. And if you don't know why something's good, then it's not really good. And the third lesson we learn from this book is one of the penalties of refusing to get into politics is being governed and ruled by someone inferior to you. And I think that goes a lot with what's going on nowadays, because we have two-party system. Not to get into politics, but we have a two-party system. It's just not a true democracy. We are forced to pretty much vote for one side or the other, when in reality, we should be voting third party, where people can speak their mind, speak their thoughts, and give goodness, and not follow a set agenda from one party to the other. And we are literally ruled by people who genuinely don't have our best interest. And I think that goes for both sides. So, I mean, I stay out of politics, and that lesson right there speaks directly to me. Next lesson, Aristotle Nicomachean ethics. Virtue lies within an extreme. This being courage as an example for virtue. Courage lies in between rash and cowardice. So what does that mean? It means knowing when to avoid a situation and knowing when to just jump right into a situation shows courage. It's not you're always going to jump head first, be rashful, and mess up. That's not courage. The same way that running from a situation is not courage. Knowing when to do one or the other is courage because you're not being an idiot and you're not being a coward. Do you understand? I think that makes sense. And that goes for all the virtues. That's what Aristotle's trying to say. And then Aristotle also talks about friendship, and I think friendship's really important. He talks about how there's friendship of pleasure, there's friendship of virtue, and there's friendship of like a collective effort. So like if it benefits both people. And those are the three types of friendships, and that's really all I have to say. It's very interesting to read. I don't know if I necessarily believe in it. I think there's more to friendship, but I think it's a very interesting way to look at friendship, because if you look at it from his perspective and you look at how your friendships are aligned with certain people in your life, you'll be like, oh, I'm doing that subconsciously without even thinking about it. So very important lessons in these books. You can also see how much I've read the Bible. Look at this. Okay, this Bible's so old. And one of my favorite lessons, obviously, you know, I'm obsessed with philosophy. In Proverbs 4:7, it says, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting understanding." I think that's super important because pretty much the Bible talks about how if you truly pursue wisdom, if you truly pursue goodness, you will eventually arrive to God. And I think that's very important because, like we said earlier, all virtue stems from wisdom. And so if God is truly good, then if you pursue wisdom, then you'll understand God. And that's my testimony to why I have come to Christ. I think that's very important to understand. And I would like to make a video talking about it. So if you would like to hear my testimony, yeah, let me know. That'd be cool. And then the next lesson we learn from the Bible is love your neighbor as yourself. That's probably the most popular lesson probably in the world. And love your neighbor as thyself, because, I mean, it's the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. You know, give to your neighbor what you want to be given to. And that adds, you know, a sense of don't be a hypocrite. Don't be a piece of shit. Like, don't treat yourself good and then treat others poorly. It's that simple. You can meditate on that for hours on end, and I think it's beautiful. And the last two lessons from this book. Now, I wasted a hell of a lot of time reading this. This was like 790 pages, I believe. Yeah, right around 750 pages. And really, it did not help me that much other than these two very powerful teachings. The first one being, reality is a mirror of your thoughts. This kind of goes into Descartes, where it's like, I think, therefore I am. The same way as, you know, if you have negative thoughts all the time, if you literally cannot do anything without thinking of yourself as a victim or thinking about the problems that you have, whatever it is, a lot of people struggle with this. Even I used to struggle with it. If you constantly think about negativity, that sounded weird. If you constantly think about negativity, you're going to see negativity in your life, and it's going to be hard to escape. It becomes an echo chamber, and you will only feed yourself with more and more suffering. And the second lesson we learn from this big book is kill importance. And that means if something is super important to you and you're putting so much effort into it, that thing is going to come back to bite you. And what that means in this book, he pretty much talks about how if you put something on a pedestal, right, and you're pursuing it, and it's so important that you become unbalanced in your life. All your weight and focus goes to that thing that you put on a pedestal. Well, guess what? You got all this other stuff that needs to be balanced. And so your life, you're subconsciously going to try to rebalance your life, right? So you put all this energy this way. Well, guess what? It's going to eventually have to teeter back to being balanced. And if you understand how a pendulum works, it goes like this, right? So when you got to go back to being balanced, it's probably going to go over, and you're going to be like, wait, no, I want this thing over here, right? But it's going to go, and it's not going to work into your favor. He talks about balanced forces when you have importance. And I think that's a very important topic to understand. So maybe, whoever's watching this as we end this video, try to figure out what you are putting into excess importance and maybe take that away. You should be calm, you should be steady, and you should be still in what you believe and want. You shouldn't have to give so much importance to things. Thank you so much for watching. You're wonderful. I hope you learned some things from this. Have a great rest of your day.